Another unsuccessful date for Lin Yi was coming to an end. The girl was looking for ways to delicately get away from him. Looking away, she said he was a nice guy, but they couldn't be together. The boy was annoyed. He was used to this kind of response. The standard method of rejection was to say that he was a nice guy, but they couldn't be together. The girl was running away from him. He shouted back at her and asked her to wait. For once, Lin Yi was annoyed and amazed. He couldn't understand why all this was happening to him. It was all an inexplicable mystery to him, why he hadn't been good at dating since he was a kid. No matter how close he got to a girl, they always sent him into the friend zone. The guy even dropped to his knees. He pounded his fist on the floor with all his might. He remembered that this was the 100th time he'd been friend-zoned. He was frustrated. He was very frustrated that he couldn't pick up any girl for himself. Lin Yi felt unneeded and abandoned by anyone. He saw no meaning in this life. Suddenly, a magical fairy descended from the sky. It was the super guy system. It had discovered a compliant host. The system has started loading the main module. The magic fairy descended to Lin Yi's side. At that same time, the system's booting completed. The boy was amazed and didn't understand what was going on. He asked the fairy who she was. The fully activated system called itself a super guy. Lin Yi looked at the fairy for a long time and couldn't understand what was going on. Everything looked unreal to him. Lin Yi kept repeating the name of this system to himself. Here he shouted with all his might at the fairy, which a more accurate title would be superfluous. He's been experiencing this for the last 20 years. The fairy called him master and told him sharply that he was wrong. She reported that the system is unique in the entire universe. Its main task is to help its master become a goddess boyfriend. Next, the system helps the master in cultivating to become the most powerful and wealthy. The fairy asked his host what he was most interested in. Lin Yi had previously never imagined that he would suddenly have such an opportunity to change his life. The fairy informed him that while the host is taking the order, he is temporarily acquiring all the skills required by the goddess. This will all continue until the host has completed all the tasks presented by the goddess. If he has a 5-star rating after completing them, he will permanently gain several skills. The boy had a moment of realization. He asked cautiously what would happen if he got a bad grade. The fairy replied that after receiving a bad grade, the skills would be reduced. It may be that the host has no skills at all. The system said categorically that it would take 10 years off the host's life if he didn't have the skills. The fairy began to insist that he agree. Lin Yi suddenly felt like he was making a deal with the devil. He shouted to the fairy to stay away from him. The fairy asked if the host was ready to start taking orders. If not, the system would start searching for a new host. The system suddenly said that if Ding Yi had no objection, it would assume that he agreed. The boy said he was still thinking and didn't need to decide for others. The fairy told the guy that although he was a grown man, he was very shy. She agreed to give him the last 10 seconds to think. She showed him the clock and told him there would be an automatic system shutdown once the countdown ended. The guy yelled that it was really stupid. He asked for time to think about it. The protagonist realized that he had very little time. The countdown was on. He realized he was taking a very big risk. The boy couldn't even foresee what would happen if he agreed. There wasn't much time left. Lin Yi consciously weighed all the possible arguments for and against agreeing to become part of the system. The protagonist felt that instead of being friend-zoned all the time, he felt that he wanted to change everything. He firmly decided that he no longer wanted to be superfluous. Lin Yi decided that he'd rather let him be wrong about all the women than have the women be wrong about him. At the last second, the guy yelled out that he wanted all the beauties in the world to blow him properly. Immediately the guy demanded to be given an order. The system congratulated him on his connection to the super pair. Data registration has finished. The fairy said that the first order will start soon. The system turned on and started searching the app store. An order number was found. The system started filtering by keywords like age, marital status, personality and appearance. The system informed the host that his order had been accepted and asked him to check out. Lin Yi had obtained his first target. It was a girl named Xia Qian. Her temporary boyfriend should be charismatic, a good drinker and a kung fu massage master. The protagonist was amazed that he needed to drink and do kung fu massage for his first goal. The guy noted to himself that he was really getting curious. The system began to prepare the smooth hero for his important date. All of the goddess's requests were taken into account. Lin Yi received an active skill in the form of a kung fu masseur's hand. Then the super guy's enhancement ran out. Among his passive skills, he gained immunity to alcohol and charming eyes. Lin Yi thought that the strange sounds made him feel weak. The guy decided to go and meet the goddess first. As he was riding in the car, he received a message that the rising star Xia Qian had rejected second young master Wan. Superboy thought that he had never heard of Mr. Wan. The driver of the car was surprised that Lin had never heard of the four families of Qin, Yi, Feng and Wan. He added that the Wan dynasty has gained fame for keeping control of most of the medicinal resources of Yongqing Hospital. Young Mr. Wan is the second son of the dynasty. He is accompanied by 10 Ferraris. Then the driver braked very sharply. A car with a super guy almost got into an accident. They stopped just in time right behind the moped. Lin Yi asked angrily what was going on and why the entire road was blocked. The driver was glad that he barely had time to slow down. The driver told the guy he'd have to walk the rest of the way. The protagonist wondered what it was about this second Mr. One that made him late to meet the goddess. The guy thought that Xia Qian was so arrogant just because she was a bit cute. He approached the group of people. They were talking about the second lord and how a girl still dared to reject him. Someone said that there was a huge number of girls who wanted to marry the second lord. The protagonist saw that the girl he needed was already here. There was a guy standing next to Xia Qian who was roughly hitting on her. She fought him off and said that she already had a boyfriend. The protagonist noted to himself that the girl looks better in person than in the photo. Xia Qian asked as the guy let go of her hand. A young man standing nearby asked the girl where her boyfriend was. He wanted her to call him and introduce him to her. The girl yelled that she was in a lot of pain and said her boyfriend would be here soon. The protagonist realized that there was no time and he started to approach the girl. Lin Yi grabbed the arm of the guy molesting the girl with his hand. The protagonist told him to get the lessons away from his girlfriend. The young gentleman called the super guy petty trash and wanted to punch him. At this time the skill massage kung fu, hands of ecstasy was activated. If during the action of this skill the user touches the person's hands, the person will immediately become aroused. The protagonist held the guy's arm tightly with his hand. Van didn't realize what had happened to him. He felt sick, his body became agitated. Some of his friends picked the guy up and asked what happened to him. Lin Yi turned around and asked if Qian was alright. The girl disappeared from his sight somewhere. The protagonist turned around and saw the girl sitting on the ground. He asked him what had happened. Qian replied that her arms and legs suddenly felt weak. Lin Yi realized that he had forgotten to deactivate his skill. Because of that, it had caused him pain. He didn't expect this skill to be so powerful. The girl was sitting on the ground and you could see that she was very ill. The protagonist picked her up with his hand. He asked if she was okay. He offered to help her up. The girl thanked him graciously. They looked at each other long and penetratingly. The system recorded that the host had successfully met the goddess demands. The activation of a new skill called Charming Eyes has begun. The girl kissed Lin Yi in a fit of passion. It was unexpected for him. He had been used to endless rejections and friend-zoning his whole life. The girl looked at Lin Yi gently and shrewdly. The guy was amazed. The system gave him everything he wanted in life. Young Mr. One shouted at the super guy. He asked how dare he kiss his woman and demanded that he stop. The protagonist and Qian were still standing opposite each other. Hearing Vanya's scream, the guy stepped aside. The girl was very embarrassed. At this time, the main character's charm skill was deactivated. Young Master Wan shouted at the girl that he had been courting her for a month and she wouldn't even let him hold hands with her. At that, Qian kissed a loser like Lin Yi. The protagonist apologized to young Master Wan. He said that he had the right to kiss the girl since he was her boyfriend. Qian couldn't come to her senses. She didn't understand what had happened to her. Mr. One called the guy a petty brat and asked how boastful he was. Van gestured to his acolytes. The stomping of a large number of feet was heard. The servants brought many boxes. The young gentleman turned to the girl and said that her father loved wine. He brought good wine for him. Van decided to use this gift as an apology for his actions. He asked the girl if she could forgive him. Qian said that he was very duplicitous. She also refused his gifts. The main character asked the girl why she didn't take the gifts. Since Mr. Wan wanted to apologize, she refused. The girl said that Wan is only doing everything to please her father. Qian told Lin Yi that even though he calls himself her boyfriend, he shows by his actions that he doesn't mind the girl marrying Wan. The protagonist said it's not like that. He added that he can deal with it when the time comes. Mr. Wan began to collect his gifts. He ordered the servants to take away the wine. The girl replied that she will be together with the main character for now. That said, she still didn't even know who he was. Lin Yi didn't understand why the girl changed her expression so quickly. He introduced himself and said his name was Lin Yi. He is the girl's super boyfriend. He asked mentally to give him a 5-star rating after completing the order. At this time, the girl's father was drinking wine at the inn with young Mr. Wang. The guy told his uncle that he was very happy to be Qian Qian's boyfriend. The man replied cheerfully that the lad was always so humble. Holding up his wine glass, my uncle wondered aloud where you could find another guy who was better than you in this world. Then his daughter and the main character came into the room. The girl was surprised that her father was already drunk. Young Mr. Wang told the protagonist that he would be the chief guest. He arrived just in time and would pour everything. The protagonist said hello to his uncle and said that he was a Qian Qian guy and his name was Lin Yi. At first, uncle somehow didn't pay attention. He just repeated to himself that the person who came was Qian Qian's boyfriend. Uncle's mood changed abruptly. He even got excited. The uncle took the protagonist's hands and said that it was nice to meet him and there was finally someone who could take care of his Qian Qian. Then the uncle sadly told me that the girl's mom passed away early. Because of that, he must take good care of her. The girl was pleased to hear such heartfelt words from her uncle. Qian Qian said he was drunk and she would take her to her room. The man resisted strenuously. He said he was not drunk and had only had 2 glasses of wine. The girl turned around and told the main character that he should take care of himself and be careful. She warned Lin Yi that young Master Wan might get him drunk. She pointed out that the wine is very strong, since her father is very drunk after 2 glasses. The protagonist answered confidently that he was never afraid to drink. Mr. Wan sat and looked at the protagonist. He was angry at him for taking the girl away from him. Mr. Wang wanted to see the guy's torment. When even before this the young gentleman had started drinking with his uncle, he would pour the wine himself. Van tossed a poisonous sleep pill into each of the glasses. After drinking such a drink, the drinker would start to fall asleep. Thereupon the young gentleman handed the glass to his uncle. Mr. Wang suggested that the protagonist get drunk. Lin Yi completely agreed and took a full glass of wine for himself. He immediately and without stopping drained the glass completely. The guy felt lighter and more cheerful and picked up the empty glass and said it was good wine. Mr. Wang looked at the guy and waited for the pill to take effect. He realized that the boy wouldn't last long. The wine suddenly hit Lin Yi's head sharply. He didn't feel well, his eyes went blurry, he wondered what kind of wine it was. Then the guy collapsed senseless on the table, he was unconscious. It was very timely that the system activated the skill of immunity to alcohol. Mr. Wang laughed loudly. He saw the unconscious guy. He noted that the protagonist was wasted drunk. Qian Qian was startled when she entered the room. She approached Lin Yi and asked if he was alright. The boy didn't react in any way. The girl started shaking him with all her might and telling him to wake up. The young master told the girl that he had thought before that Qian Qian thought highly of himself. He didn't plan to be aggressive. Van didn't expect a girl to start dating a loser. He started unbuttoning his shirt and said there was no way he could understand. The young master asked the girl what part of Lin Yi was better than him. Van told his guards over the radio that no one was to leave the building without his knowledge. The guards confirmed that they would. The girl yelled at Vanya not to go near her. She warned him that it was illegal. Qian Qian said that she owned Yinqing's television company. One asked if they should do a live broadcast. The girl here slipped and fell to the floor. The young gentleman came closer and closer to her, but she couldn't get up. The girl lay frightened and didn't know what to do. She didn't even have the strength to speak anymore. The master told her to resign herself to her fate. The father and her boyfriend drank his wine and sleeping pills. As a result, they would sleep day and night. Wang didn't expect Lin Yi to be dumb enough to invite him for a drink. It would only be better for him. He lunged at the girl. He shouted at this time to catch the turtle in a jar. The girl was frightened and screamed silently. Then she heard someone screaming from outside. The protagonist told Mr. Vanya that he is a turtle that he wants to understand. The guy grabbed Vanya's legs and tore toward him with all his might. The young gentleman was very surprised. He could not resist. Van asked the protagonist how it was possible that he was alive and conscious. The system activated the kung fu skill spinning 36 style in time. The young gentleman wanted to suggest that the boy talk things over. The protagonist used a skill called Great Shifting of Heaven and Earth. Such a skill specializes in full body massage, which is useful for an exhausted person in a safe space, but only for normal people. Vanya's screams echoed throughout the building and could be heard far away. The guards were not worried. one of them said that the sounds made it look as if Mr. Vanya had a new entertainment again, the other said that he was. The young master had no way of understanding how it was possible that Lin Yi was not drunk. The protagonist told him that he could experience it himself and find out how effective his wine was. Van asked the protagonist what he was going to do. The guy started pouring wine from a glass into it. Lin Yi asked for the young master to show him how he would look drunk. One said that Lin Yi was strong. Gradually, the wine was beginning to poison him. He found the strength to stand up. The dose of wine wasn't that big yet. The young gentleman wanted to stand up and walk straight, but he couldn't anymore. His whole body was trembling. Suddenly, Wang felt very charming and attractive. The wine went to his head. He suddenly decided he was the manliest man alive. Qian Qian and Lin Yi laughed at him. The protagonist told Wang why don't he prove himself. The young master agreed. He accelerated and jumped out the window with full confidence. As he flew from the window, he felt as if he had wings. Van even sang a song while falling. This development was very surprising to the protagonist and the girl. They did not expect Van to jump out of the window. Someone from the building looking at Vanya shouted that this guy wanted to die and he jumped from the third floor. The young gentleman himself managed to get up on the ground. To passers-by he said that he represented the moon and wanted to destroy stupid humanity. People jumped on him, thinking he was a pervert. Van ran and was chased by a mob. They demanded that he get out of their neighborhood and called him a perverted hooligan. The protagonist called the jolly young gentleman a drunkard. The girl replied that Juan would not venture into the neighborhood again. The girl told the protagonist that she was really grateful to him today. For a brief moment he was dumbfounded. For a brief moment, all his past failures came back to him. After turning his thoughts around, Lin Yi said that everything was fine and everything was the duties of a super guy. The girl was suddenly surprised to hear the word super guy. She suddenly asked the protagonist if he was wondering why she had ordered a boyfriend and included so many unusual requests. Lin Yi wondered about the girl being a popular presenter and whether there might be such people who are following her. He wondered why she needed a super guy. Lin Yi told the girl that maybe she had different hobbies. She got angry and asked what he was thinking. Qian Qian said that if he didn't want to know, let him forget about it. The guy said he was wrong and asked her to tell her everything. The girl said she couldn't explain everything in a short time and invited him to her room. The guy's mood changed drastically. He thought to himself that he was going to Qian Qian's room and whatever he was told. Walking into the room, he imagined the presenter lying on the bed. She asked him to be gentle. The protagonist was filled with feelings in the dream. Qian Qian together with the guy opened the door of her room. She invited him in. Lin Yi was overflowing with loving feelings. He muttered that he was allowed to not hold back. The girl turned around in surprise and looked at him. She didn't understand why he was so excited. She grabbed his arm with a rush and told him to come in now. The guy said dreamily that they had nowhere to rush, they still had all night. Upon entering the room, the protagonist was very surprised. It was not what he expected. He noticed the girl's father lying on the bed and tied up. Lin Yi wondered what was going on here. The man was still very drunk. Through his sleep he asked Qian Qian to give him a drink. Here the main character was approached by a girl. She was silent and didn't say anything. Qian Qian looked at her father with great pity and regret. The girl began to tell that 5 years ago her family had been in a car accident. After that moment, the father felt guilty all the time for the death of his mother. She understands that the father is hurting. He wants her daughter to have a good boyfriend. For this reason, they need a good boyfriend that her father will be happy with. The girl unbuttoned the shirt on her father's unconscious body. It was covered with bruises. The girl said that every day he drowns his grief in alcohol. Because of that he gets new bruises and cuts. Qian Qian covered her father with a towel. She added that she couldn't see him like this. For that reason, she was willing to settle for any guy. To her, Lin Yi was unexpectedly better than she had thought and expected. The girl added that she didn't have high hopes. The boy only stood silently listening. Suddenly, she came right up to the protagonist. She asked him if he could promise her something. The guy was embarrassed. He told Qian Qian that she could ask anything from him, any request of hers. He was ready to fulfill with a quarter. The girl said she didn't want anything special. She knew the guy was good at massages, so she asked him to help her father massage for a while. The protagonist friend cringed, repeating the girl's request to help her uncle with a massage. She was surprised at his reaction and asked him if there would be any problem with that. The guy felt uncomfortable and said there would be no more problems. Qian Qian walked to the door and said that she would prepare dinner. it was best to eat before the massage. The guy replied that he was in no hurry. Looking after the girl, he realized that she was worried about something. Suddenly the protagonist suddenly had the idea to activate the charming eyes. The girl was in front of him and he needed to do something. A fairy appeared and said the general purpose super guy system. If the host builds a psychological bond with each customer, he will not be able to take orders in the future. The fairy added angrily, so the protagonist wouldn't lose an entire lake for the sake of a pond. The guy calmed himself down and said he wasn't that kind of person. Lin Yi remembered the ancient wisdom that said you need 2 hands to clap. There was still a long way ahead of him. Evening descended upon the city. Young Mr. Vanya's adventures were already over. He sat in an expensive car surrounded by his subordinates and security guards. Gradually, one passed into himself. One of the subordinates asked how he was feeling. Master said that he got intoxicated from his own pill. It was all Lin Yi's fault. The guard shouted to Vanya that everyone was already discussing what had happened on the internet. The gentleman took out his smartphone to go over everything in detail himself. He saw a video of him running around the neighborhood nearly naked and being chased by passers-by. Van became very angry. He realized that this shame would be difficult for him to wash off. He squeezed the smartphone with all his might, so much so that it cracked. He said with anger to one of his subordinates to immediately dispatch the Black Panther. One pressed further on the phone and said specifically that he wanted the protagonist to agonize in front of Qian Chang. He said that he wanted to punish the people who humiliated him. Van added in the end that all the culprits wouldn't live to see tomorrow. The guy was sitting and waiting for dinner. The girl was cooking in the kitchen. Lin Yi watched her from the side. He noted to himself that Qian looked very cute from behind. The guy was sitting on the couch. Suddenly his attention was drawn to a photograph standing on the table. He took it and began to look at it carefully. He saw 4 family members in the photo. The protagonist realized that it is a family portrait. His girlfriend has a sister. The girl came into the room. She said that the dining room was full of bottles of wine, so they would eat in the living room. She carried 2 plates. She apologized to the guy for his poor hospitality. The girl brought the food to the table. The protagonist was still sitting and looking at the picture. He was mesmerized by her thoughtfulness. The food in the plates looked delicious. Lin Yi told her not to worry, he would eat whatever she prepared. The girl said that she is usually at work. For this reason, the food is prepared by her father. Today she wanted to personally thank the guy. As she passed the table, she bumped her knee on it. It threw her off balance. Qian started to fall and dropped the food and plates. The guy realized that he needed to act immediately. Falling helplessly to the floor, she couldn't grab onto anything. The protagonist managed to grab her very quickly. The guy saved her from a nasty fall. He asked the girl if she was okay. She thanked the protagonist. He advised her to be careful. Suddenly the guy was hit by a falling plate of food. This struck the girl even more than her personal downfall. Qian started wiping the guy. He licked his lips and joked that the eggs and tomatoes came out pretty good. The girl told her guest to take a bath first. She promised him to find her father's clothes for him. While the guy was washing up, the girl sat on the couch. Her bumped leg hurt. She was sitting and stretching her leg. She was in a lot of pain from the fall. A guy came over and asked what was wrong with her leg. She said nothing and asked if he had finished washing. Qian looked at the boy and said that his father's clothes were too big on him. He replied that it was fine and the clothes fit well. The protagonist looked at her with interest. He said she didn't need to force herself. Lin Yi started massaging the leg. He wanted to help the girl. She told him to wait and asked what he was doing. The guy replied to her that he was massaging her little bruise. He reminded her that he was a kung fu massage master. The main character knew how to give a professional massage. He pressed on his knee and pressed on his foot. The girl cried out sharply in pain. She forced herself to endure, for the sake of healing. The guy was focused. He wanted to show off his massage capabilities to the best of his ability. After recovering from the pain, the girl said she felt much better. The protagonist was pleased that he had succeeded. After a short time, he asked her if his massage had worked, if she felt better. Qian thanked and said that he had helped her a lot today. She apologized for the mess in the living room and offered him a bed for the night. Guy asked her what she meant. The girl confirmed that he could sleep in the bed tonight. The guy was flattered. He realized that his dreams were coming true. He thought the system was perfect. The reality turned out to be different than the expectation. The guy found himself in the bedroom in bed, but without a girl. He had to sleep in the same bed as the girl's father. He snored a lot. The guy couldn't sleep. he kept remembering how unlucky he'd been before and how he'd been friend-zoned a lot before. It was deep night outside the window, everything was shrouded in silence and gloom. Just then, in the darkness of the night, someone began carefully picking the lock of the front door. After a pause, a stranger entered the room. He advanced quietly, only the floorboards creaking. It was a mercenary named Black Panther. He thought to himself that it had been a long time since he had eaten raw colon. The protagonist went to the door, he opened it and wanted to leave the room. At the same time, a thug nicknamed Black Panther glared at him from behind the door. The boy opened the door. He didn't want to sleep in the same room with the girl's father anymore. Because of his uncle's snoring, he decided to move and sleep better in the living room. He would be more comfortable there. The Black Panther watched the boy. His behavior irritated the bandit. Lin Yi standing in the hallway said to himself that if he was seen by Qian Qian sleeping on the sofa, she would think that he was annoyed by her father. The Black Panther at this time pulled out a large knife. He prepared to attack the guy. The main character was walking and said to himself that it would be a problem for him if a girl gave him a low rating. He decided that he would come up with an excuse later. The bandit was sneaking up on the guy from behind. Lin Yi heard nothing and suspected nothing. Black Panther hit the guy's head with all his might with the hilt of his knife. The blow was very strong. The protagonist was knocked unconscious. He didn't have time to do anything. The Black Panther stood in front of Lin Yi's body. The guy didn't move or give any signs of life. After a while, the guy started to come to his senses. He slowly began to open his eyes. The guy saw the Black Panther standing beside him. Qian Qian was sitting on the sofa at the same time. The protagonist took a closer look and noticed that the girl was completely tied up. Her mouth was tied. Lin Yi realized that he was sitting on a chair and his hands were tied behind his back. Looking down, he noticed a large knife sticking out of his left leg. Lin Yi wondered and said to himself why he didn't feel any pain. He thought that he must be asleep. He decided to himself that everything that was happening to him was a dream. He must wake up. Black Panther said judiciously that the guy didn't feel pain because he had lost a lot of blood. This is the body's response to pain. The bandit told the guy that he was going to die soon. The protagonist wondered who was standing in front of him. He told the Black Panther that he didn't do anything to him personally and why he attacked him. The bandit interrupted the boy abruptly. He drew his head close and said that the dead boy had no need to know. Lin Yi thumped his head into the enemy's face with all his might. The bandit pulled his face back sharply. He hadn't expected this from the boy. The protagonist realized that not all is lost yet and he has the strength and ability to resist. The bandit called the guy a little bastard and decided to finish him off quickly. Black Panther was surprised the guy still had time to resist. He was annoyed because he had taken pity on the guy before. The bandit kicked from above the knife that was in the guy's leg. This is where a bit of his painful feelings returned to the main character. The bandit pressed down on the knife and asked if the guy was in enough pain now. Black Panther punched the guy in the face with his fist and said let's keep going. He beat him viciously with his fists and said he wanted to enjoy the spectacle tonight. Beating the guy up, Black Panther shouted out the question of what would be harder, him or the protagonist's bones. The night continued on the street. In the meantime, the bandit continued beating the guy. It got to the point where Black Panther was very tired. Blood was dripping from one of his fists. The bandit stood heavily fatigued. The protagonist was sitting on a chair as if nothing had happened, conscious. Lin Yi asked cheerfully at the bandit if he was done. The guy said that it was his turn now. At this time, the system activated a skill called Kung Fu Massage, 36 style rupture of the tendon of the palm. That's when the time bandit took the knife out of the guy's leg and stuck it into the protagonist. The guy became very sick from such a blow. He felt his body paralyzed. Lin Yi thought that it was probably over for him. His strength was leaving him. The wound caused him to cough up bloody coughs. He realized he could die now. He thought to himself that everything that was happening to him was wrong. The main character felt like he was drowning somewhere in deep water. He decided that even an advanced system had not helped him in any way in his life. Lin Yi felt in the last moment of his life that he was dying, ending his life as a complete loser. Black Panther told the guy that he knew about Lin Yi's strange tricks and that he needed to be careful. The bandit was thinking and told the guy that he was a useless weakling. Black Panther kicked the guy with all his might. He flew backwards far away. Lin Yi was lying motionless in a pool of blood. The bandit walked up to the guy and told him there were a couple things he needed to remember. He told the protagonist that if he wanted to survive in this world, he had to bow his head to those in power. The Black Panther kept saying, if the guy resisted, those in power would show no mercy. he stabbed the guy one more time. The bandit said that the guy would eventually be destroyed. He was still holding his knife over Lin Yi. The girl, sitting on the couch, looked at everything that was happening with horror. She could not understand what was happening. The bandit turned around and headed towards the girl with the knife. The boy noticed it, but couldn't do anything. The protagonist gathered his strength and said faintly, "So the Black Panther wouldn't touch Qian Qian." The bandit said calmly so the guy wouldn't worry. He was ordered not to hurt the girl. Black Panther added that his job was done and now he would untie Qian Qian. With his knife, he began to cut and untie the ropes and free the girl. As soon as the girl freed herself, she immediately shouted at the protagonist. The guy was lying on the floor. Qian Qian ran over to him and told him to get up. The girl hugged the protagonist and told him not to dare die for anything. The girl cried and said it was her mistake. She didn't need to look for the main character to make her boyfriend. Qian Qian wailed that it was her fault that Lin Yi had insulted the Wang family. She was the one who should have died. The girl cradled the unconscious boy against her chest. He was still alive and thought it felt good. Suddenly the thought popped into the guy's head that maybe he just dying wouldn't be so bad. He recalled that his life was not much different from others. He went to school and then to university. Then he got a job, unlike the others. He lost that job quickly. After that, he was abandoned. Being somewhere between life and death, the guy suddenly thought that maybe his past breakup wasn't really a breakup. After all, he wasn't particularly interesting, handsome or rich. He couldn't believe he was making an effort to get used to all this, himself compared to a dog asking for pity. The main character decided to send this life to hell. He decided that he could have ended it before. That's when he felt the super guy system activate around him. The protagonist felt a surge of strength and a desire to live on. He remembered that he still had a chance to change his life with special skills from the system. The protagonist saw a fairy come down to him from above. She looked at him silently. Suddenly the fairy interrupted the silence and said that additional settings for the client had been found. She asked the guy if he accepted them. The main character told the fairy that she is very persistent and responsible. At the same time, he can no longer play with her. The countdown started. The system required the guy to make a decision. The protagonist sharply yelled at the super guy system to get her to back off. The fairy said that the host has accepted the change, so the transformation begins. At the same time, the girl was trying to revive Lin Yi. He was lying on the floor. Black Panther said that the girl had stopped crying. The guy simply fainted. The bandit said it was hard for him to let the protagonist live, but that's his job. Black Panther turned around and prepared to leave. He said his mission was accomplished. The main character's body was enveloped in a strange glow. The body began to heal itself. Life was returning to the boy's body. He was able to move his limbs again. The protagonist felt completely strong and healthy. There were no more wounds on his body. He rose confidently to his feet. The bandit had no idea what was going on behind his back. Suddenly, Black Panther sensed something wrong. There was a guy standing right behind him. He was completely healthy and his eyes were glowing. At this time, the system ran out of extra measurements. The guy acquired a new passive skill. The protagonist threw himself at the bandit with all his might. He was stunned and unprepared for this. A new skill called Rebirth was active in Lin Yi's body. The protagonist grabbed the Black Panther by the throat in a complete burst of strength. The bandit felt himself begin to suddenly gasp for breath. He felt weak. Lin Yi's eyes flashed with anger. He found his strength and threw the enemy to the ground. The Black Panther was making desperate attempts to fight back. He kept wanting to grab the guy's head. The bandit was already struggling to breathe. He thought to himself that this little brat was a problem for him. Black Panther, looking at the guy, thought that an ordinary person could not have such strength. Then he remembered he had a knife. The bandit managed to slip a knife out of his boot. He decided to stab the protagonist with it. Black Panther swung his leg and struck it hard from the side. The knife from the boot didn't hurt the guy, it just bounced off like metal. The bandit was very surprised. He'd never seen anything like it. He had no more weapons left. The boy was full of anger, his eyes glittered. He decided to finish his opponent. To deliver the final blow, the guy prepared to use all his strength. A glow continued to emanate from the main character's body. The Black Panther was lying on the floor beneath him. Suddenly, out of fear, the bandit completely wet himself. He thought his end had come. The protagonist never finished the bandit. He stopped his fist right next to Black Panther's face. The bandit was lying down and did not give any signs of life. Lin Yi felt that something started to happen to him and change. He closed his eyes. the guy decided that it was the super guy system making some changes. An unknown force threw him to the ground. He had no strength to get up. The protagonist lay on the floor unmoving. He thought to himself that it was all starting again. A sharp and unpleasant ringing brought the protagonist back to the current reality. The alarm clock was ringing. The clock showed 8 o'clock. Lin Yi jumped up on the bed. He still couldn't figure out where he was at this moment. The guy started to remember what had happened to him. The protagonist left the room and walked down the hall. He saw the girl's father. He greeted him cheerfully and asked how much he had drunk last night. The uncle had prepared some food. He called the boy to eat. Qian appeared from the room. She wasn't feeling well. She said she had a headache. The girl wiped her eyes and wanted to tell her father what had happened last night. Qian glanced to the side and was shocked. She didn't expect to see the main character alive. The girl asked with surprise how come Lin Yi didn't die. He was very surprised. The main character said, wondering why he should be dead if his body is perfectly fine. The guy added that he feels full of vigor and energy. The guy asked the girl if she had accidentally had a bad dream. He added that maybe he should have kept her company last night. Qian said angrily that she had dreamed that it was as if the main character had had too much to drink yesterday and died. Lin Yi thought deeply. He couldn't tell what was real and what could be a dream. The family sat and dined in silence. No one knew where to start the conversation. The girl asked her father why he went to bed early yesterday. He didn't even talk to Lin Yi. The father replied that he had nothing to talk about. As long as the guy is nice to the girl, they have nothing to talk about. Qian began to cautiously recall that last night, Mr. One wanted to do something to her. She had been helped by Lin Yi. The girl wondered. She still couldn't figure out if last night was true or a dream. The protagonist sat pensive as well. Last night remained a mystery to him. The guy reasoned if he really helped the girl and why he was the one to do it. The father laughingly told his daughter that it was all his fault. He wanted very badly to find her a good boyfriend. Because of that, he became careless. The girl said sharply to her father that he must first take care of himself. He replied to the girl that he would take her advice. He also said that he had to visit his old job today. These words interested the boy. He asked the uncle, and where he worked. The girl answered that her father was a soldier and a veteran with a lot of experience. The father himself said that all this is in the past. Now he cannot beat a man without fatigue for himself. The protagonist was surprised. He realized that his father might have had something to do with the massacre in the house last night. Lin Yi had a different perspective on the events of the previous evening. He began to suspect something. A boy with a frightened appearance and a timid voice turned to his uncle. He was surprised at the expression on the boy's face. He asked sternly why he doubted him and did not believe his daughter's words. This is when the father softened up and asked the protagonist if he really thought his uncle couldn't do anything because he was old. The father put his arm around his muscles and said that he could defeat 10 bullies of the. The girl and the boy looked at him in silence. There was still a lot they didn't understand. The father turned to the boy and told him to eat soon. Eggs taste better warm than cold. The girl walked with her boyfriend to the exit door. She put on her shoes and told her father that she was going to work. Qian clarified that Lin Yi would take her to work. The boy said goodbye to his uncle. As the couple walked out the door, the uncle waved goodbye. At the end he wished them a happy journey with a smile while continuing to wave. When the door had closed completely, the man stood silent and waiting for a while longer. After a brief pause, he pulled out his smartphone and started calling someone. Uncle decided to go to the balcony to talk. He started a conversation with Haiyanlang. The uncle asked his interlocutor if he had any free time. Standing on the balcony, the man said that he would need a little help from his interlocutor. At this time, the bound Black Panther bandit was sitting quietly in the corner. The protagonist and the girl were walking alone on the street. They were silent. The reality or fiction of the previous night struck them. Qian began to timidly say to the guy that she had dreamed last night. The guy fell silent. Something caught his eye on his phone. He stared at it intently. The girl calmly said to herself that Lin Yi was perfectly fine. The protagonist shouted excitedly that it was almost 9. The time of his pact with the girl was running out. Qian calmly reacted to these words. She silently looked at the guy. Somewhat detachedly, she said it was bound to happen eventually. Lin Yi grabbed her hand and led her confidently behind him. The main character told the girl that they need to hurry up. They should definitely get her a boyfriend. Qian stopped. Tears were in her blue eyes. She didn't want to go any further. The girl said conciliatingly that the guy doesn't have to do that. Their relationship is, after all, an ordinary contract. Qian told the protagonist that his work was finished. the guy was surprised. He still didn't agree, he wanted to convince the girl that he was serious. At the last moment of parting, the girl kissed the guy, he was waiting for it. In the same instant, Lin Yi resigned himself to the fact that the date was over and he would never see the girl again. Qian Qian said in parting that she hoped the protagonist would never forget her. She turned sharply to the side, said goodbye, and walked quickly away. The protagonist wanted to say something to her but was silent and he only held out his hand after her. When the girl had gone far away, he shouted after her that he was looking forward to their next meeting. The girl still had tears in her eyes, she told him to herself that she agreed. Qian Qian picked up her smartphone and confirmed on the app that the task was completed. A fairy appeared in front of the boy, she congratulated him on completing the first task and receiving 5 stars. The fairy suggested the boy get him a new permanent skill. She was surprised that the host was in a bad mood. He didn't even feel like answering. After a brief pause, the boy touched his finger to the fairy and thanked her, she had given him the opportunity to change his life. The fairy tapped the virtual hammer on the protagonist's head with a resounding thud. She demanded that the master didn't just touch others and that he would make a decision. Lin Yi said that he apologized. The protagonist was offered 4 skills to choose from, they were immunity to alcohol, charming eyes, kung fu master's hands, and rebirth. The fairy changed the order of the skills. Because of this, the guy had to rely on luck when choosing a skill. The protagonist reflected that immunity to alcohol and charming eyes are hard to control, there are rank restrictions in these skills. In his opinion, the kung fu master's hand and rebirth are more similar to some cheats. The guy decided to take rebirth. In his opinion, he should become invincible. Lin Yi said that with his years of experience in mobile games, he makes his choice. After the guy pressed the virtual button, a loud ringing sound was heard. He noticed that everything lit up with the bright colors of the rainbow. The main character got excited, he figured he was getting something definitely super rare and valuable. The system congratulated him and told him he was getting adorable eyes. Lin Yi cried out capriciously and said that he didn't want this trash and wanted to replay. The fairy told him no. The protagonist shouted that he was willing to buy the skill with money for any amount of money. The fairy replied that he couldn't pay with money, but he could pay with his life. She voiced the terms that the host could change 10 years of her life for trying to overplay it. The guy told her she was Satan in a pretty dress. Lying at home, Ling he thought the super guy system was a scam. The main character was summarizing the last few days. He had no girlfriend and had made enemies of the Wang family. The boy was saddened as he realized that Mr. Wang might hire mercenaries like last night. Suddenly he was distracted from his thoughts by a loud shout. Someone was calling his name. The next moment, the door to his room flew open with a violent bang. A sporty girl in shorts jumped into the room. She was glad that the protagonist had returned at last. The boy stared at her in amazement. They had not expected such a meeting at this time. The main character called a girl named Su Xiaojing. He asked why she was yelling. He wanted to rest. The guy recommended her to understand the name on the loudspeaker. The girl tapped her foot on the floor next to the boy with all her might. He felt the floor even crack. Xiaojing asked him where he had been missing for a couple of days. She told him not to joke with her. The guy thought to himself that the girl was still practicing taekwondo, and she had gotten pretty good at it. Su Xiaoqing blushed slightly and looked at the guy in surprise. The girl told the main character that he had never paid his rent and now he dared to show up. She told him that he had decided to die young. The guy grabbed her leg and asked her to wait. He wanted her to listen to him. Suddenly the girl slipped and began to fall dramatically to the floor. The main character wanted to help her. He rushed after her to protect her. During the fall, the girl's shoes even came off. She fell on her back and could not get up. She was in pain. She didn't move. The protagonist lay on top of her. The guy told the girl that he had big problems with his finances and wanted to ask her to wait. Then their eyes met. The activation of the charming eyes skill took place. A person looked at by the host will perceive the host as a lover. Anyone can be charmed once a day and only for 5 minutes. The protagonist asked the girl apprehensively what her problem was. Xiao Jing softly replied for him to be more gentle with her since she was afraid of pain. At this time, young Master Wan was at his mansion. One of the assistants came to him with a report. He bowed to him and gave him the important information. The master was very annoyed. In anger he even broke a wine glass. Wan asked his assistant again. He replied that if anything happened to the Xia family, the Wang family would also be punished. As the aide clarified, the Wang family will suffer the same fate as Black Panther. At this time, the assistants carried Black Panther in on a stretcher. he was unconscious. Mr. One noted that there is no live spot on Black Panther because of the beating. The master demanded that his assistants contact Fong-kun immediately. Wang decided that it was time to change the order of the four great families of Yuncheng: Qin, Yi, Fong, and Wan. Lin Yi was in his apartment at this time in an awkward situation with Xiao Jing. The guy thought annoyed, why did this skill activate at the wrong time? This way he could go to jail. The skill didn't last long. He began to gradually shut down. The disconnect started when the guy was still lying on top of the girl. In Xiao Jing's eyes, the protagonist instantly lost any charm. The girl looked at him in amazement and didn't understand why he was lying on top of her. She even felt embarrassed and ashamed of herself. She blushed with embarrassment. The girl called the guy a pervert and punched him in the face with her fist. The protagonist started to crawl away. The girl shouted after him that he was an asshole and a pervert, and told him to go to hell. The guy started banging his head on the floor and apologizing to the girl. He asked her not to kick him out. The guy promised her that he would pay everything after 2 days. The girl told him not to tell anyone about what had happened today. The protagonist swore to God that he would remain silent and not say anything to anyone. The girl agreed and said she would come back when he brought the money. Near the door, she said irritably that if the guy ever did the same shamelessness again, she wouldn't forgive him again. Walking out the door, she said goodbye. The boy was silent at that time. The protagonist thought to himself that his guest was very cute when she was embarrassed. Suddenly, the girl looked into the room and said that the guy should pay for the damaged doors. Lin Yi angrily said that she was the one who knocked it down. The girl replied that she couldn't hear anything and laughed. The guy shouted that it was extortion. The fairy came down to the boy. He was desperate. He had no job and didn't know where to get money. Fairy asked him if he was ready to take on a new order right now. The protagonist had no other choice. He accepted the new order successfully. The fairy told him that his next client would be special. The system would run tests on his body. The transformation began. The guy got excited. He expected to be a superhero after the transformation. He hoped the new client would be a superhero fan. The guy asked that the fairy let him see all of the new client's requirements. The client demanded a guy with a high-pitched voice, a martial artist, and transgender. The protagonist fearfully turned to the system, but the transformation had already begun. Lin Yi demanded that the system wait, but he could no longer stop anything. As a result of the transformation, he became a full-fledged transgender. The fairy said the transformation was complete. She asked the guy to check it out. The protagonist immediately ran his hand down his pants to check exactly what had changed. Immediately, the protagonist during the inspection noted some onset of strangeness. He was just now learning that he couldn't feel or find anything in his pants at all. He now fully realized that he had lost his genitals completely. What hurt him most was the thought that you can't take anything back. Then the girl came back. She asked the main character if he could sing. The girl had a competition going on at school and needed a singer. Lin Yi looked at her with shock. The girl noticed some major changes in the guy. She was interested. The protagonist wanted to scream at the whole yard because of what had happened. He even flashed the thought that there was no point in living. Young Master Fong came to Mr. Wan's house at his request. Fong demanded sharply and rudely that Mr. Wan put out his cigarette. Wan looked at his interlocutor silently and with dislike. He didn't like that the sole heir of the Fong family was already daring to command him. But he did put out the cigarette. He did not want to irritate his guest in any way, because he needed help. Wang began to tell him that 70% of the real estate in Yongqing City is under the ownership of the Yi family. He asked if the Fong family would like to take a bite of this pie. The young master continued that Yi Xiangluan, head of the Yi family, has a military background and does not even think about business. Their family business is handled by Mrs. Yi Qingzhou. Wang pointed out that young Master Fong was talented, promising, and young. Mr. Wan suggested to his interlocutor to deal with Yi Qingzhou next. It would only be a matter of time before the Yi family was absorbed. Fong replied slyly, if Wang himself was so interested, why wouldn't he do it himself? Next, Fong said that he preferred girls younger than him. Here he showed Vanya a smartphone with a photo of a recent incident. A young gentleman was running almost naked down the street after drinking wine. He was chased by a crowd. Pointing to this photo, the guest asked Vanya if he preferred older ladies for a change of life. Van wondered where Fong had gotten that photo from. He was sure it had been deleted everywhere. The guest explained that the Fong family controls the media in Yuncheng. he added that he had been waiting for this for a very long time. Young Feng promised that this compromising photo would appear at Yi Qing Zhou tomorrow. As he left, Feng told Vanya that if he was interested in those photos, he should hurry up. Young Master Wan could still hear the echo of the departed Feng for a long time. He was very angry. Wan thought menacingly that one day he would destroy the Feng Jun family and fool his 4 sisters. One of the servants asked Wan what they should do with Xiao Qian. He replied that she was living with Yi Xiangluan. He demanded that she not be touched for the time being. Wan ordered to inquire about Lin Yi, find him, and learn all about his past. At this time, young Master Wan was fiddling with some kind of jar. He added that he wanted to give a gift to Lin Yi. The young people at the song contest cheered the singer Feng Jun. He had many fans. Feng went on stage and said that he visits each girl with a different song. The audience was delighted. Xiao Jin and her girlfriend were at the concert. The girlfriend said that Feng Jun was a show-off. Xiao Jin added that the winner was pre-selected by the school. Feng Jun made it with his personal concert. The girlfriend said that Feng Jun is the kind of person who wants to be the best at everything, and if he can't do that, he will destroy it. Xiao Jin turned to her girlfriend and asked her not to worry and called her Xiaoya. She recalled that Xiaoya was the winner last year, so it's still unclear who will win and who will lose. Xiao Jin also recalled that her girlfriend had accepted a bet. According to it, she should become Feng Jun's girlfriend. Xiao Jin added that they can refuse the bet, the guy can't force her. She even threatened to beat him if he touched Xiaoya. The girlfriend said the guy's family is one of the most influential and she wouldn't be able to run away for long. She picked up her smartphone and said she had an ace up her sleeve. She activated the super guy service. Xiaoya said that there was still time, the song contest was still going on at this time. Lin Yi arrived there, and walking among the people in the crowd, he was looking for his goddess. He felt that she must be somewhere near. He was getting ready to provide the highest level of service. Finally he spotted the girl he wanted and was glad he had found her. She was standing with her back to him. The main character walked up to Xiaoya and put his hand on her shoulder. He said hello and called himself the new Superboy. Both girls turned around at the same time and looked at the main character. They were in astonishment. Xiao Jin asked surprised if it was really Lin Yi standing in front of her. Here Xiao Jin hotly started to prove to her girlfriend that she knows her super boyfriend. She called him a loser who can't even pay the rent. She advised her girlfriend not to give the boyfriend a chance to cheat her. Xiaoya surprisingly asked Xiao Jin if she knew her new acquaintance. The girlfriend also added that she is heterophobic. For that reason, she ordered a transgender super boyfriend. Xiao Jin was very amazed. She didn't believe that Lin Yi's girlfriend's boyfriend was transgender. Xiao Jin's anger really amused the guy. He asked her if there was any problem. In response, the girl shouted at him with great anger that he was a pervert. In a fit of rage, she yelled that she would help him become transgender. Xiao Jin kicked the protagonist straight into the groin with great force. Nothing happened after the blow. The guy felt absolutely nothing. Lin Yi stood there as if nothing had happened. It was as if the blow had just missed him. Xiao Jin was greatly startled. She realized from her reaction that the guy had nothing there. Xiaoya addressed the guy first as mistress and then as master. She apologized for her friend's impulsive behavior. The guy replied that it was no big deal. The new girl asked the protagonist if he knew all her requirements. Lin Yi said confidently that within 2 days, he would be her perfect boyfriend. He would do his best. At that time the singer was coming down from the stage, and the whole hall clapped loudly and deafeningly for him. He took off his coat and threw it away into the crowd. The audience greeted this with applause. Everyone in the audience wanted that coat. They started a conflict among themselves. The singer walked up to Yao Ai and asked her, pointing to Lin Yi, if this is her ideal boyfriend. He clarified why. He doesn't look like a man. The main character told the singer that he smelled like a man and asked him if he had showered long ago. The singer told him that none of that mattered. After the contest Xiaoya, whom he called Shirya, would be his girlfriend. He advised Lin Yi to get out of here if he had a brain. Superboy once sadly and judiciously said why the heirs of great families behave in the same idiotic way. The singer approached Xiaoya and asked her if this was the singing contest she had mentioned. She answered in the affirmative. The girlfriend turned to Xiaoai and told her not to believe Lin Yi, for he is a liar, but Xiaoai just wanted to trust my gut. Xiao Yi thought deeply and decided that Lin Yi, whom she thought was transgender, had faced discrimination before in her life. she decided that a transgender person who faced fate could not be a liar. She firmly decided that she believed Lin Yi, no matter who says what. Xiao Ai approached the protagonist and told him that she had complete faith in him in this competition. The guy thought this little girl has a great imagination. Super Guy approached the singer and told him that he also wanted to participate in this contest. Lin Yi also said that he wanted to make a bet. He offered the condition that if he loses, he and Xiaoya will do whatever Mr. Feng wishes. Also, the main character said that if he won, Feng would have to dance naked on stage. The singer replied that although his rival looks like a sissy, he speaks like a man. Feng stepped on the protagonist's foot and said that he was the first person to challenge him in singing in this school. He advised the protagonist to prepare to lose. The protagonist replied with confidence in his voice that no one knows yet who will win and who will lose. Singer Feng replied unequivocally that he fully accepts the bet from the protagonist. The main character climbed on stage and was ready to perform. From the audience started asking who he was and what he was doing on stage. One of the audience members said that she had seen him somewhere before. One girl recognized Lin Yi from uni standing there on the stage. She remembered that all the girls were hitting on him back then. One of the female viewers wondered whether a loser from the university could participate in the contest. Another replied that there are no rules that prohibit it. The main character was standing on stage and he realized that a lot of people still remembered him. He decided to give them all a show. The guy said into the microphone that he was going to do a song called Love After Death. He hoped everyone would like it. Lin Yi snapped his fingers and asked for the music to be turned on. There were shouts from the crowd, people demanding that this posturing stop. They couldn't believe that a guy had decided to sing such a difficult song. Someone shouted that they wanted young Master Feng. At the same time, the system activated a skill called Sounds of Nature, Dolphin Song. The main character got ready to sing. He played a couple of test notes into the microphone. Next, he began to sing freely and confidently. The audience immediately liked it. With skill, his singing words matched the music perfectly. The whole hall was in rapture. The words of the song floated above the audience, which communicated that if a person is not sincere, he will not be happy. Then the song hummed about a rather deep feeling. People in the audience were taking pictures of it and videotaping it. The crowd was ecstatic. They realized that a new star was now being born on stage. Xiaoya said enthusiastically that she had never heard such a beautiful voice before. Master Feng's handmaiden told him that he had his own people in the judges. No matter how well Lin Yi sings, he won't be able to pass the qualifying round. But singer Feng refused to let the underhanded person do such a thing. He reminded them that they should have respect for their opponents. Superboy continued to perform songs on stage. The audience saw and heard nothing but him. Toward the end of the song, the guy told the audience to all look at him and sing along. Immediately then, the charming eye's skill, Massive Reach, was activated. No one in the audience could no longer look at the main character without falling in love. With the skill, Lin Yi was able to secure a complete victory for himself without any competition. After the performance, the guy modestly bowed and thanked all the audience. All the judges on the panel gave the main character the highest possible scores and grades. Shouts could be heard from the audience that the performance was extraordinary, and the song was the coolest. They called Lin Yi a singer from God. Walking past the cheering crowd, the super guy thanked everyone for their support. Xiaoya walked up to him and greeted him. She was as excited as everyone else. The girl called him a good boy. The boy himself said to himself that he didn't think he sang well. Xiao Jin thought to herself whether she had just seen the Lin Yi she had known all her life was real. When the super guy passed by singer Feng, he said that they would see each other in the finals. Walking past the crowd, the super guy said goodbye to all the audience members who gave him support. One of the underlings approached Feng and told him that a number of judges no longer wanted to deal with them. They were no longer following their orders. The singer remained silent. Somewhat wistfully, Feng said to himself that the protagonist had real abilities. Here, he ended his words by saying that Lin Yi would no longer have the opportunity to ascend the stage. Xiaoya, her girlfriend and super boyfriend were celebrating his resounding victory at the restaurant. Xiaoya had a very big appetite. She happily consumed the barbecue. Xiao Jin asked as she restrained herself. She was even surprised, as she thought Xiaoya didn't consume such food. While consuming the food, the girl said that she was very happy. She recalled Feng Jun's disappointed face. The protagonist only laughed at this. That's when Xiao Ai noticed that she had already eaten the entire barbecue unnoticed. The girl approached the main character and asked if he was full and if he needed to order something. the guy said that he would not refuse a kebab. Xiao Ai ran to order more food. She told the guy that he could chat with Xiao Jin. Young Master Wang's underlings were sitting at the next table. They were closely monitoring and reporting everything that was going on via walkie-talkie. Xiao Jin banged his hand on the table and demanded the protagonist to stop messing with her head. She also demanded that he explain why he got close to Xiaoya. The protagonist said that she misunderstood everything. He is just a temporary super guy and there is no motive. Xiao Ai asked the cook for more extra food for myself and a kebab for the guy. The protagonist told Xiao Jin that after Xiao Ai talked to him, her heterophobia lessened. The guy bent down to Xiao Jin and said that it was good for both of them. Here the girl told the guy that she wouldn't spare him if he had any dirty thoughts. The protagonist and Xiao Jin were distracted when they heard some noise from the side. They saw that Xiao Ai was approached by a whole group of Singer Feng servants. One of them asked her if she was sure the girl remained silent fearfully. The servant told her gruffly that young Master Feng was waiting for her and to go with him. Some of Vanya's underlings informed him that on his orders all the men were in place and everything was going exactly according to plan. Here came Van in person, surrounded by a group of his guards and underlings. He had just heard about the temporary superboy. Mr. One said this is all getting interesting for him.